Welcome to the show today, everybody. We have a great show for you covering a lot of 5G content at a very high-level topic. And just wanted to introduce ourselves. We are RCN, 5G and LTE enablement specialists. Warning 5,000 company, a woman-owned certified business. Mark, I'll let you tee us off for today's show.
Sure. So yeah, for those of you just joining us, just another housekeeping note, we do have a Q&A section. You guys are more than welcome to drop any questions you have in there. We'll try our best to answer them as we go, but we have a section at the end where we'll read off your questions. And a lot of this is helpful to us, so we know what type of material you guys are looking for and the best way we can prepare you guys for 5G to help you and your business. So yeah, without any further ado, whenever you guys are ready.
Well, I'll introduce Jacob then. Jacob is our lead engineer here at RCN Technologies. He is our 5G SME of the engineers that we have on our team, subject matter expert, and he's also the R&D lab engineer. So it's a new position that we actually created because we're building so many specialized enablement products. We needed to have a dedicated engineer for that. So if anybody needs to know anything about it, he's the guy.
Appreciate that, Ben. And
you have me, better for worse, Director of Marketing here at RCN, and there's no more specifics that we really need to dig in for me. I just enjoy talking and learning about 5G and sharing what I know with you guys. All right, today what we're covering, the 5G network evolution. We are covering 5G's flavors, speeds, and specs. We're going to cover the carriers and the OEMs as well. And we'll cover some security. We'll cover some of the revolution that you can expect after 5G really starts to impact your organization. And then we'll handle some Q&A at the end, answer any questions you guys have. Just make sure you stay tuned. We're going to be really fast-paced. We have a lot of information to share with you. We want to teach you and give you as much as we can at a high level. We'll dig in where you guys want to dig in. And at the end, we will share some more resources for you, including if you do want to start building that 5G roadmap, we can help you with that. We also give you a little bit of a haircut off the top as well for that, whatever service that ends up happening there. So anything else there, Jacob?
No, I think that just about covers it, yeah.
All right. To kind of lay the foundation for understanding 5G, the crash course, let's walk back just a little bit and cover a couple of things, some key terms that you need to understand or know what the definitions are and what they mean, a little bit of the backstory of wireless networks and where they are today, and then some of the improvements it brings. So let's dig right in. Jacob, can you explain a little bit about capacity for us?
Absolutely, Ben. So yeah, our first glossary term for the day is going to be capacity. These are all terms that if you know these 5 terms, you can get through the weeds in a lot of discussions about 5G and cellular technology in general. So capacity just refers to the number of clients / users / devices / endpoints that connect to a tower at any given time. Every cellular tower that's out there has a finite number of things that can connect to it at any given time. And it's important to know that capacity depending on how big the city is and how big your population is growing and things like that. And we're going to dive into how that's going to change in the world of 5G.
All right. Next up, bandwidth.
Yeah, we have bandwidth. Very similar to capacity, but a little different. This has to do with how much data can be sent and received through a cellular connection. So say a tower has a capacity of 100 clients, but that doesn't say that it has the capacity for 100 clients using 100 gigabytes at a time, all at the same time. That's what bandwidth is going to be the measurement of. So that's going to be how much you can download or upload or how much you can use at any given time. And once it hits that limit, it starts to constrain you in.
All right. So that's the pipe. How big is it?
Mm-hmm.
Latency.
So latency is often kind of the sleeper statistic when it comes to internet speeds and values, which is sad because it is one of the most important ones, and it's the amount of time it takes for data to be sent and received. A lot of people think that this is related to your down and up speeds, and it is, but that also has to do with the quantity of the amount. But even if it can download a large quantity, how quick is that getting to you? And that's what latency is going to be the measurement of.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Jacob, but bandwidth is kind of, the speeds, right? That's what everybody knows. But it's not necessarily the biggest factor here. Latency might be one of the bigger wins.
No, yeah, the way I describe it is, bandwidth is the amount of lanes on the road, but an 8-lane road really doesn't matter if you're driving a push wagon down it, right? Latency is going to be how fast is the engine in the vehicle going down that road.
Okay, let's keep going then. Frequency is term number 4.
Yeah, so frequency is a term that is getting used a lot more as we talk about 5G, and that's because this is one of the biggest things that is changing as we go into the future. Going into the other ones, we saw a lot of shared frequencies and a lot of similar things, but it changes big with 5G. So all frequency is what part of the wave are you on? In cellular lives in the radio spectrum, and all it's going to do is place you whether you're on the 200 megahertz spectrum or whether you're on the 2000 megahertz spectrum or 2 gigahertz spectrum. And that's just the number of waves that pass through a fixed place within a certain time frame is how we measure that.
And bring us home with the edge.
Yeah, a new term for this event. So edge is, like it says, the shorthand for the endpoints and devices that interface with the internet. So the reason why we bring this up and why this is becoming so important is because the way our devices are going to interface with the internet is going to change. So your router at home, your modem, anything that connects directly to the internet, that's the edge of your network. However, the cell phone that's in my pocket, and I'm sure yours, is also at the edge because it is connected directly to the internet from its spot. As we move into 5G, we're going to see a lot more devices become edge devices rather than clients of other devices.
And that's also kind of defined by what's not the edge as well, which you'll hear a lot about the 5G core if you're digging into the networks and their investment and rollout of 5G technology.
Mm-hmm.
And just to hit on that one more time, the edge and the core is to me, the easy way to understand the core versus the edge is the core is the tower, right? And the edge is more of the actual device you're using to access it.
A little bit. The tower is almost a way for the core to connect to you. The core is also behind the tower, built-in servers, firewalls, network equipment, all state-of-the-art equipment designed to give you the internet, essentially.
So a little bit of the history, the backstory of 5G, right, starts with the previous generations. These are some specs that we have for the previous versions, the 3G network, the 4G network, and you can kind of see how they've grown, right, a little bit over time with speed improvements, latency improvements, frequency expansions for being able to transfer data over these wireless spectrums. And as we move into 5G, we can kind of see the story, the arc of how we use wireless to communicate, to share, to send data. With 3G, the big story was smartphones themselves, right? Before 3G, smartphones wouldn't have been an idea that really took hold and really adopted by the masses, because we wouldn't be able to have anything that's going to them that's smart, right? Text messages would have been the smart thing. So we saw the expansion of smartphones and mobile internet access, being able to access the internet wherever you are. 4G allows us to expand on that with other devices. Mobile video, you can do all kinds of really cool connected tracking, and examples of that would be Uber, right? Or DoorDash, those global companies that are connecting wirelessly at the edge and able to provide new services and new products to consumers using the 4G network. And then 5G, we're vision casting a lot at this point. There have been some applications in the field, but largely, the commercial side of 5G is still mostly theoretical, right? We have a lot of things we think we can do with it, but a lot of it now is really figuring out where are the major gains, and we'll get into some of those vision castings later. But we didn't know that Uber would exist when 4G rolled out. It became a thing, and I'm curious to see and excited to see what else 5G is going to bring as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So walk us through what the 5G bands are, Jacob. This is a little bit of a breakdown of the 3 different flavors, which is a big piece of 5G, understanding these 3 flavors, because before in 3G and 4G, we didn't have to think about flavors of 3G and 4G. It was just 3G or 4G.
Yeah, so like Ben said, we have 3 flavors of 5G, the low band, the mid band, and the high band. Each one does things a little bit differently, and each one has its own strengths and its own weaknesses. So low band is going to be the slowest out of the bunch. You're not going to see the exciting breakneck speeds of 1 to even 10 gigabytes per second with the high band, but we will see very reliable speeds of up to 100 and 200 megabytes per second. The big thing about low band is that it can travel a very far distance. And then mid-band is somewhere in between the two. We see better speeds, probably still in the 200 to 300 range. It can travel a decent distance, but not near as far as low band can. And it's probably going to be the sweet spot for it as far as how we understand cellular today. Low band and mid band are definitely going to get used the most in place of what we know 4G does today. High band, on the other hand, can travel only a very short distance, which is why you see people going into cities and taking pictures of their smartphones with the speed test going on with a 5G millimeter tower sitting right above them on a building. Because truth be told, that's about the only place you can get it right now. However, it's still very, very exciting. This is the one where we're going to have to reimagine how we use wireless internet and reimagine where it lives in radius to us. But otherwise, still very, very exciting and definitely the least used in our present day so far.
Infrastructure is going to be key to the high band as well. It's going to be very different in a makeup than what we know of, and that's one of the things you're really getting at. So let's talk a little bit more about the practical differences. So this is something that we have. This isn't to scale exactly, but this is to give you guys an idea of how they're related with speed and with distance on these 3 bands.
Yeah, I actually love this. Like Ben said, not exactly to spec with everything, but I think it's a good one image to kind of show you what the differences is. The higher you go up into the high band, the faster you're going to get, the lower you get, the slower you're going to get, but you're going to go a lot farther. And then, like we said, mid-band is somewhere in between.
So let's dig into an application of that infrastructure in a way, right? So we were talking a little bit about the differences and how it might be different in how we have to think about a wireless network.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about this. In an application of baseball, I love baseball. It's my favorite sports, America's pastime, and home runs. Most people are familiar with the concept of a home run. You're trying to hit the ball over the fence. So let's pretend that that's the objective of the wireless network, is to hit the ball over the fence. If you're using a traditional baseball, it's really pretty simple. You follow what you expect. You swing a bat, you hit the ball, it goes over the fence. That's kind of the analogy to the low band flavor of 5G. It's very lightweight in comparison to the other flavors of 5G. It can travel really far, right? But it doesn't have a whole lot of substance. It's pretty small. And again, it's lightweight. So it serves a specific function But if we take this idea, the story of trying to get the ball over the fence, and we move into using a different ball. So we use a basketball now, right? It's heavier. It has more substance. It won't go as far. So if I swing a bat and hit a basketball, it's not going to go over the fence, even if I'm, Ronald Acuna Jr. or Barry Bonds or Hank Aaron. It's not going over the fence no matter how hard I hit it. You're going to have to hit it a couple of times. So the distance isn't going to go as far, but you'll have more of it there. That's the speed in the heaviness of it. So it's a little bit heavy, won't go as far. And then we get into high band. So, right, talking about let's switch it up for a bowling ball. It's really not going to get far at all, right? If I hit it with a bat, it might go a foot. Jacob, I love you use this analogy. You'd have to line up people all the way from home plate to that center field wall there, you can see. And they would just have to hand it off to each other to get that ball over the fence. And the analogy there really applies, thinking about the infrastructure that 5G high band requires a large amount of antennas to carry that signal relatively short distance, right? So home plate to the outfield's 400 feet, right? So in baseball, that's a long way, but in real life and broadcasting and network, that's not. And so I love that when you kind of painted that picture, Jacob, the idea of those, that's how you'd have to view antennas for a high band application.
Yeah. I think the big thing that this analogy gets across is, if you're going out to play baseball, you probably have a baseball bat, meaning that a lot of the antennas and a lot of the similar technology that we use for 4G today is going to get you by just fine on low band and going to get you most of the way there on the mid band. But whenever we get to playing baseball with a bowling ball, we're going to need some new ideas.
So we'll have to get some new hardware with those new ideas. All right, so that's a little bit of the overview of 5G. Now let's dig into 5G and the carriers next. So what are the networks like today? What can we expect? What are the big three doing? And where are we at? So we'll cover some of their branded terms, where they are today, and then a little bit about where they're going. Start with T-Mobile, the leader in the clubhouse. If you guys haven't been paying attention or getting advertised too frequently, it's a highly contested space, but based on actual frequencies and actual deployments, T-Mobile has a head start. Jacob, I think that you and I have talked extensively about this, but T-Mobile's spectrum holdings on their own give them quite a bit of a head start over the other two big networks.
Yeah. Between absorbing Sprint and also their luckily, I should say, aptitude for getting into this early. They have quite a head start on the other big two, not necessarily for better or for worse, but mainly just in capacity. They control so much of the spectrum right now.
And that is changing. We'll get into that in a minute. But overall, the low band deployments are comparable amongst the carriers, roughly, right? The mid band is where T-Mobile has got an advantage today as far as holdings, and that again that'll change over time. And then high band is a small part of the today strategy for T-Mobile. I think their focus seems to be very much on growing that low and mid band deployment. And we'll show you a map in just a second as well. But two things I wanted to highlight for T-Mobile so that you guys really get an idea is that they branded these two terms, extended range 5G and ultra capacity 5G. That's their way of talking about the different bands of 5G. Ultra capacity for T-Mobile, it means mid-band or high band, okay? And the extended range is low band. So the lower one travels further, they've labeled it extended range, and the mid and high band have faster speeds, so they've labeled it ultra capacity. So if you see those terms out in the wild, that's what you're talking about. They were the standalone to really get that 5G going, like we talked about, even though, and that's in the low band, really, the nationwide 5G, the first to deploy nationwide. And you can expect a little bit in the future, that mid-band expansion this year. Their goal is to get to 200 million people, and then they want to roll that low and high band rollout, which the high band is going to take a little bit longer to get deployed and really get the hardware to access it in a practical way.
Yeah, and that's definitely true for not just the big three, but every major carrier. Still a long ways to go on high band and making that more accessible.
So we mentioned the different flavors for T-Mobile. You can see this is the map that we have today for T-Mobile. They have a few pockets of exclusively 4G. They're right there, kind of in the central Midwest area, and somewhere in up in the mountains of the Rockies and the Appalachians. But for the most part, they've got a true nationwide 5G extended range or low band network deployed across the country. And the 5G ultra capacity, you can see the little pockets around the major metropolitan areas for the most part across the country as well.
Yeah. This map really showcases how far T-Mobile has gone. I know in maps in the past, I was shocked to realize that the roles were kind of flipped, because usually you see a ton of 4G coverage and then just little blips of 5G until you look at the key on T-Mobile's and realize that it's the other way around for them right now, which I think is crazy.
All right, so let's dig into Verizon, who has done a very good job of branding ultra-wideband. You'll hear that a lot with Verizon. The advertisements typically mention, 5G done right, and that's the high band, very low propagation or low distance flavor of 5G. And then they also have nationwide 5G. It's somewhat comparable. I mean, it covers looks like 50 million less than T-Mobile, but that's potential coverage, right? That's not people on the network. And then mid-band, it mentions auction here, which we'll dig into the auction here in just a minute. 5G nationwide is low and mid-band for Verizon. They don't have a specific branded term for low and mid-band, but if you do hear ultra-wideband, that's what you're talking about, millimeter wave or high band. Very similar to T-Mobile, they're going to be expanding their footprints throughout the year, primarily trying to get that 5G core established later this year. They're also testing that high band. I think Verizon is a leader in the clubhouse from that high band application and rollout. They really focus first on that, where T-Mobile focused first on the low band rollout. And so those strategies are competing, and we're going to see how it plays out. It's interesting to watch from our perspective, where we're carrier agnostic, and we work on wireless technology and applications with all the carriers and see what the differences are. And actually, we'll get into that, how that might impact you a little bit later too. Jacob, is there anything you wanted to highlight for Verizon?
No, yeah, I love that idea of not looking at anybody as better or worse, but just everybody's taking a different strategy about it. And really, the truth of the matter is that no one knows what the winning strategy is going to be, right? Which one of these bands is going to get used the most or have the most impact on our lives. We can make inferences, but it's super interesting to see. And I think Verizon's high band is really excited to watch it roll out, along with their 5G standalone core that they're very proud of and working diligently on. I'm very excited to see how that's going to change things.
So this is Verizon's map as of yesterday. You can see a little bit of a different visual than the T-Mobile map. So we've got a few different colors here, but the ones you really want to pay attention to are that light orange ish color, and then the darker reds, and then the kind of maroon. So the light orange is 4G. So when you're looking at the nationwide, they have nationwide 4G, and then the 5G nationwide is really kind of limited to those major metropolitan pockets. And then they have these little dots that are the 5G high, the high band, ultra wideband to them. And those are in the major, NFL plus cities, those markets, about 60 of them across the country. So it's a lot limited, a lot different visual, Jacob, than the T-Mobile map that was presented.
Yeah, I like using the term different rather than better or worse, because like we said before, high band and low band work very differently. One low band tower is going to cover several kilometers of distance, whereas several high band towers are only going to cover small areas. And so that goes back into us having to kind of rethink how we think about this technology.
And one of the things that's really important to consider as you're looking at the carrier's rollout is they're grouping those bands differently. So Verizon has grouped low and mid band together and separated out high band, and T-Mobile's done the other way. They have separated out low band, and they have grouped together mid and high band. So when you're hearing those rollouts, you're seeing maps. They're not all one-to-one. They're a little bit different. Keep that in mind as you are going through and considering what might be the best application or investment for you. All right, let's move to AT&T. So AT&T has some branded terms as well. 5G plus for AT&T is high band or millimeter wave. 5G by itself, just 5G is low mid band for them. And they have the 5GE, which is a little controversial, but that's their 4G LTE network. The 5G evolution or 5GE. The reason they're using that is that the 5GE network for them is comparable in performance to the 4G LTE network. So they went ahead and just jumped straight to it. Low band for them, very similar coverage. Mid band, notes auction as well. Most of their holdings will come from the auction that we'll cover in just a second. And then their rollout, they're really looking at that standalone 5G upgrade, just like the other carriers are. Their real focus, though, that was different, again, different, using the term different than T-Mobile and Verizon, was that their real focus is improving that latency. Which is very interesting that they specifically called out improving latency.
Yeah, and with 5G, we're going to see a major improvement to latency across the board with everybody. But it definitely is not anything to sneeze at, and definitely worth focusing on and trying to improve. I know there was a lot of controversy about the 5GE, but I do like this, and I'm not sure how much we talk about it later on. But it does highlight what a lot of people have talked about, which is don't throw your 4G away, because with the rollout of 5G, 4G technology is only getting better. We're getting up to gigabit speed 4G, which has already been rolled out everywhere and very reliable. So definitely want to keep an eye on the emergence of 5G, but just don't be so quick to trade in all your 4G technology for it.
That brings up a good point, Jacob. 4G isn't going away anytime soon. In fact, we're looking at forecasts on networks, and it looks like 4G LTE is going to be very applicable in practical terms for at least the next 7 or 8 years. So, 4G technology is not dead, and that's important to take away. And another last thing here, the 5G Plus for AT&T, they're really focusing on enterprise application and reserving that high band for those enterprise applications, which is going to be, honestly, the most common use case for 5G high band, which is, it's a different strategy again. So let's move on to the map here for AT&T. Jacob, this is, again, a little bit of a different look here than the other maps. They haven't really separated out the flavors on their map like the other carriers have.
Yeah, definitely. Understanding, talking about how things are different. AT&T is talking a lot about 5G Plus, which is their millimeter wave, which we already discussed on Verizon's. Doesn't occupy a ton of space, but they're not putting all of their eggs in that basket. They're moving, of course, they were a member of the auction for the mid-band, but even their low-band space they're trying to move into. So I think it makes a lot of sense that we see a map that's somewhere in between Verizon and T-Mobile's because of where their focuses lie.
Okay, so that's kind of the big three, and then the last piece here that we really want to talk about, the big three, is that auction that we've been referring to. So the auction happened in December for the majority of the month. The FCC was auctioning off 280 megahertz of spectrum between 3.7 gigahertz, 3.98 gigahertz. What happened, Jacob?
Yeah, so really, for a lot of it, we don't exactly know what happened. We kind of have the cliff notes of what we know right here. So Verizon, here just recently we found an article where they gave a little bit more information about the results of the auction from their perspective. But of course, the FCC can't disclose everything about what the major carriers did. We know that Verizon spent about $45.4 billion, AT&T spent about $23.4 billion, and T-Mobile spent about $9.3. Really not a shocking number from T-Mobile. As we discussed earlier, they already had a ton of space in the mid-band spectrum. They were the leaders before this, so not surprising to see Verizon and AT&T kind of trying to catch up with it a little bit. So Verizon won, they stated, between 140 and 200 megahertz of the C-band spectrum, which lives in the mid-band, like we said earlier, which increases Verizon's sub-6 spectrums 120%, which is quite a lot. As for AT&T and T-Mobile, no news just yet that we could find, at least, on exactly what they purchased, where they landed. We can kind of infer what they got and how much they got from the numbers, but still don't have anything solid on it. If anybody at home knows about it, feel free to share.
Yeah, there you go. And then, so that kind of covers the big three carriers, but there are some disruptors here involved in this game, and it's just something to keep your eye on, right? So Dish has some spectrum that they're sitting on, that they're reporting they're working on their own 5G network. Dish network is, and they're testing it in Wyoming. Interesting seeing what they're going to do, how they're going to disrupt the big three there. And then, SpaceX and Amazon are also dabbling in this from a different perspective with low Earth orbit satellites for internet access. So basically satellite internet. And so, that's going to be an interesting disruptor. They're going to skip the tower model altogether and try and go straight from space to Earth with internet access.
Yeah, and we don't really know how the 5G spectrum is going to play into that plan on a whole, or what they plan on doing with it. But I think it is super interesting to see not just these three, but a few others dabbling in this spectrum. And I think it's really exciting to see what these companies are going to come out with.
All right, so one future prediction, taking all the puzzle pieces from the carriers and seeing how that might add up for us, for business, for organization, public and private. And I think that this is something that is already happened to a degree. You might have an organization with many locations across the country where you're working with multiple carriers based on the coverage and the location you're at. But I think in the future, what's going to happen is that it's not going to be based so much on geography and more application. You might have a different carrier provide you service for a specific application, and you might have a different carrier providing service at the same geographic location for another application. So really high speed, low latency, maybe an application that you're servicing with Verizon's wireless network, and you might have a low band or mid band service or application connecting to T-Mobile's in the same specific location. And that's one of the benefits of understanding the differences in the flavors that we've kind of gone over today, is that you might actually need to know why each carrier is different so that you can take advantage of that and use that as an asset or leverage in your business organization.
Yeah, I love this prediction even more now, revisiting this subject a few months later, because I think we're really seeing more and more evidence that this could come true the more we see companies focusing on their specific flavors.
So something to consider, and we're carrier agnostic. We can work with all the carriers. We can aggregate all the carriers for a customer, but it's important to understand why each carrier has strengths and weaknesses and what those are in that specific area. All right, so let's get out of the carriers a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about something new. This is something we didn't have last time we covered this. Manufacturers, OEMs. What's going on with them? When can you expect, right? So we've talked about 5G for a long time. I remember 5G was a major theme, not at the previous Super Bowl that we just finished, but the one before that. It was a major theme. And practically, businesses don't have access to it today, primarily because the hardware doesn't exist or it isn't rolled completely out. It hasn't been fully distributed, and they're still in development or rollout of that. So here's kind of an overview of what that looks like. Jacob, can you kind of walk us through what this means?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a lot of information to take in. Fortunately, we don't have enough time to hit every single one of these individually, so we're just going to kind of talk about an overview today with Cradlepoint. So Cradlepoint today doesn't have anything that is strictly 5G capable at this time. However, they have what they call 5G ready, which is what we're going to kind of get into in the other slides. However, still great choices for devices. We're going to see, hopefully in Q3 of 2021, more of their devices come out that are much more catered to the 5G technology and are much more prepared for that to come out. Peplink has been really hitting the ground running with their line of devices that are 5G capable. and still intend to come out with more in Q2. Sierra currently, the only one that we have is the Airlink NG90 5G. Still an exciting device to see also where Sierra takes this further, because I really don't think this is where they're going to stop with this. Digi is becoming a player in the game with their TX64 and 54, along with the EX series coming out in Q2 of 2021 as well. Inseego is really hitting it hard with their devices and a few different variations of their devices, including even 5G capable USB sticks, which I think is really exciting and going to be interesting to see how that goes. In hand, still working on it, but we're going to see some really, really exciting things coming Q2 of 2021 and also further out in the future. We have over on the right side, just kind of, we don't really know a time frame, but we know they're working on it. So Q3 going to be really exciting for Cradlepoint. Q2 going to be really exciting for everybody to see all of these new devices coming out, see how they impact the market, and also see what's gonna kind of overtake what maybe. It is worth mentioning that all of the current devices on this sheet that are available today are still in the sub-6 category. What that means is it's going to be mid-band and low-band. Currently, nothing on here is capable of taking in millimeter speeds, and maybe it will be in the future with some modification. Still yet to tell. This is fine because, like we said before, high band just really isn't super available for everybody, and if you're even just a little bit far out of a city, it's not going to be much use to you at this time anyway.
Jacob, real quick, on the W4000 series from Cradlepoint, is that millimeter wave accessible?
I believe the plan is for it to be, yes. We're still learning things about these devices as they come out. But as far as I understand, I believe the W series will be able to be 5G access to everything. But it is worth noting that a lot of these devices could be, they're just not talking about it quite yet because you are going to need new antennas and a few other pieces of new equipment to actually accept millimeter wave before the device even gets the chance to see it.
That's a layer we're really not getting into very deep today. But I think the big takeaway by looking at this slide is 5G is something that you can use today, and it's also something you can plan for even if you're not today. So when we had this presentation a couple months ago, there weren't even this many devices available, and they're starting to become available very quickly. And the Pathlinks specifically, we've seen those be mentioned in applications off the bat, and the Cradlepoints, we've seen them being used as demos in Australia. So there's some today, there's some coming in the pipeline. And honestly, we talked about earlier, 4G hasn't gone away either. There may be some applications where you're interested in 5G, but 4G may be a better fit that's more cost effective for you and still gives you a pathway or a roadmap to 5G, which we can help you determine and define.
Yeah. At the end of the day, a lot of us are running businesses off of 50 to 100, maybe even less megabytes down in speeds. And whenever you start getting into 5G, we're talking about 200, 300, 1,000, 10,000. And 4G going into the gigahertz, we're going to see a lot more applications for it.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the lingo. And this is from Cradlepoint specifically because they have some devices that they're marketing with 5G pathway in mind, so that they give you the future proofingness. That's not an official word, I guess, a real word, future proofingness, but it allows you to build that into your infrastructure without having to completely reconfigure your interface and your network your network configuration. So 5G ready is one of the terms that they use, and that really just means that it is a WAN interface, a CPO or captive modem. It's capable of supporting 5G adapters and 5G speed subject to that maximum throughput. So basically, you can upgrade with an adapter a 5G ready device. 5G optimized is only slightly different. It is optimized for a 5G adapter, but that allows you to actually integrate that into the device itself. I think that's the E3000 as an example. Has a slot that you can actually plug that whenever that 5G modem is available, you can plug it straight into the device as opposed to having an external adapter. Is that correct, Jacob?
That is correct. Yeah.
And then 5G embedded is the future device. It's not available today, but it basically is the fully integrated unit from the manufacturer. You don't have to do a 5G upgrade in the future. So that can get confusing if you're not familiar with it, and you want to be familiar with it because you don't want to get a 5G ready device and expect 5G networks and performance from that device today. That is. All right, so let's move a little quickly through this, Jacob, to try and wrap up. We've got a few slides we want to get through and share. So here's about some of the big benefits of security.
Yeah. So getting into the security slide, we're talking about a subject. I'm sure you guys have heard this word, which is slicing. So slicing is a term that's cropped up because of 5G, but it is a little bit of technology we've had. So slicing is essentially software-defined networking. And what does that mean? We've talked a lot about the cores that these companies are building. And so in the past, whenever we've had to swap out certain infrastructures, make room for more people, more capacity, more bandwidth, it actually took people physically going into a building with tools and moving things around and actually adding servers and things like this. Software-defined networking allows us to have all of that infrastructure in place, and people can actually rearrange these things from a software-defined point from the comfort of their home, which is really exciting. But what's the most exciting about it is that instead of one person sharing one network from a tower, 5G is going to have so many clients and endpoints that it can hold that you're going to be able to slice off pieces of the spectrum essentially to allow for somebody to use. And unless you have this specific kind of key from the core to the endpoints relationship, you're not going to be able to get into this. Slicing is going to offer us a lot more opportunity and a lot more security measures than just that. But just as a quick high-level overview, it's definitely something to get really, really excited about. 5G is going to be one of the most secure wireless internet technologies we've seen today.
That's exciting. We did do a whole webinar on 5G and security. So maybe that's something that we can add to our series in the future.
Absolutely.
In the interest of time, let's keep moving, Jacob, and kind of get through some of these slides a little quicker. I know this is one of your biggest aha moments with 5G. So in a nutshell, what are we looking at?
Okay, so in a nutshell, a lot of people ask the question, well, if low band's no faster than 4G, what's the point? Why should I get excited about it? Well, this is the point. 4G can hold congruent about 4,000 devices per square kilometer per resources available. 5G is going to be able to cover over 1 million endpoints per square kilometer. This is an absolutely insane jump. This is going to come with our software-defined networking, a lot of the cores that are changing and how the infrastructure is changing behind it. But being able to do this means that, truth be told, the only thing that was kind of keeping us from having really insane technology that's all connected to the internet is that finite limit that 4G and other wireless internet technology has put us under. With 5G, we've blown that lid right open, and anything and everything is on the table to get connected to the internet as an edge point.
That is very exciting. And then within 5G itself, this is one of the things that I think is really interesting. Is this is kind of like the personality characteristic of 5G. We talk about what is 5G. This is what kind of makes it up, right? These features that you can see. So, the massive Internet of Things, that low energy, we haven't even gotten to dig into that, but the extreme low energy usage of 5G can enable many new applications. In the enhanced mobile broadband spectrum, we've talked about capacity and the data rates. Those alone are very practical, very easy to understand benefits in what makes up 5G. And then over in the mission critical control, that low latency, high reliability, and the mobility is all these features really make for a really new experience of what a wireless network could be in almost a much more ideal form than we've seen them before.
Mm-hmm.
Digging into that a little bit more on the practical side, right? What can we expect from 5G from the enablement side? And you can see kind of a list here, but everything from a fixed wireless replacement of traditional landline broadband to over on that mobile side, that first side, that virtual reality, augmented reality, real-time data. And let's dream a little bit real fast on some of these specific applications that we've kind of dug into and seen. So next-gen construction is a fun one. You can actually use 5G networks, and if you're in a construction environment, to do holographic visualization, digital induction tracking. Those IoT sensors can really give you an idea of what's going on in your construction site. You can embed an IoT sensor in a concrete pour, and because of that ultra low battery life or battery usage, it can last and report on the structural integrity of that concrete for years to come, which is super interesting. Inventory management is a great another feature that you can enable with a 5G network. Real-time management, efficient logistics, smart shelving, and all of that can be automated with a 5G network connected device. And we dig into these more as well on some of our other webinars in case you're interested in learning more about these applications, which I know these are the fun things, right? So we've done a 5G for retail, 5G for public sector, where we've actually dug into these applications a little deeper. And there are recordings of those on our YouTube channel if you're interested. Security and compliance. Natively, it's more secure, but the benefits from a feature perspective are going to enhance your security with faster checkout, increased trust, decreased battery usage as well, coming into play for security and compliance and transactional data. The customer experience, this is a super fun future one. If you remember the Minority Report movie from, gosh, a long time ago now, but being able to personalize an experience for a customer when it walks into a retail store with an immersive or interactive experience, allowing them to virtually try on clothes and get the real-time data transfer and access to the product catalog and visualize it on them. Frictionless transactions as well. So that augmented reality, frictionless transactions, those are going to be fun things you can do with 5G in a retail environment. Let's jump into public sector for just a second and talk about how AR can impact safety. You put a heads-up display on a first responder, and they're able to realize while they're going through maybe a building, they're getting building data. They understand where all the exits are, where the access points might be that they need to get in and out of. They can have IoT sensors for gases or smoke inhalation. Anything that you can think of to make that response faster and safer could be in that display, giving them that low latency from a 5G network to apply in that really emergency situation. Another really, really fun one that super demonstrates the connectivity piece of 5G and how you can connect multiple things together is the smart city safety response. So in this specific example, let's say you have a gunshot detection system go off. It senses a gunshot. Then you have sensor queuing that's able to track where the gunman might be and cues sensors down the street around the corner as it follows him. And surveillance cameras also are able to track and move and keep tabs on wherever that suspect might be. So you're able to respond much faster, safer, and end whatever that threat might be in a smart city type of application. And one of the more fun ones that we see, TV and broadcast, especially live TV, has so many applications for 5G and transferring that video feed and doing more video feeds, getting closer to the action, and doing drone video. That you can see a lot of enhancements and improvements with 5G in broadcast and production, completely replacing satellite dish relays in the future. Dave, this is your prediction. I want you to kind of really quickly explain what you're seeing here, the millimeter wave.
Yeah. So this is calling back to what we were saying about kind of rethinking how we're going to use it. Millimeter wave can only span a small distance. It's faster and more secure in Wi-Fi, which we already see gigahertz frequencies being used, that being the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz in your own home today. So companies are investing in high-band 5G antennas that will be implemented in business and public areas today, where we're going to see maybe millimeter wave being produced from a small point, maybe inside of a building or a park, and being projected out into a small area, essentially almost like a Wi-Fi AP, only it's a direct access to the internet. These are, of course, just predictions that we're seeing based on how we're being used today and also how to get around the restrictions in millimeter wave.
What can you do today? Really specifically, low and mid bands are available today. High bands are really limited in their availability. Major metro areas only, very close to those repeaters, very high density venues as well. So you can access it, and we talked about how you can access it with those devices earlier. But you can build a plan ahead. So I'm going to actually just kind of skip through this. You can build a plan ahead, and we can help you with that. If you want to know more about 5G, we have our webinar series. We've talked about that. We are releasing more information on our website, more content, and we're actually going to have a whole 5G resource hub for you guys to access and get more information on 5G like we're covering here. And then our social feeds for small nuggets and updates. The best thing you can do today is really just engage us. We're here to help. We are the specialists. We are, our promise to you is that we'll give you the right solution every time. And so the best thing you can do is just ask, tell us what your needs might be, and we'll help you. Your RCN account manager will be able to build a roadmap for you for 5G, even if it's not something that you're needing today. You can have a pathway to access that. And make sure you invest in 5G forward infrastructure as a part of that plan. I talked about our guarantee, and we do believe truly staying connected is everything. That's the purpose and why we come to work every day. And we have a process we'll walk you through if that's something that you're interested in there. We have 110 years of experience. Without bragging too much, we really do focus on 5G and LTE. So if that's something that you need help with, let us know. Okay. Well, thank you guys for coming. Again, we appreciate spending time with us. Hopefully we were able to share some nugget with you that you didn't know before you came in. And if you want to know something that we didn't cover, shoot us an email. You can reach me or Jacob. We both have first name last name at rcntechnologies.com. So we're happy to help. We want to provide more valuable information. And if you came to our previous one and you came to this one, hopefully there was some good new stuff for you. Make sure you visit the URL there as well. The 5G crash course is a great landing page. You can get some more resources, get that discount code, get a segment set up. And Mark, do we have any other events coming up that we want to share?
Yes, so we don't have it posted just yet, but we're looking at doing our next webinar on March 25th, so be sure to keep an eye out for that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. Jacob, is there anything you'd like to say to the folks before we sign off?
Just thank you all so much for being here. Super, super exciting and fun to be able to talk about this stuff. Love it.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you next time, guys, and have a great day.
Have a wonderful day, everybody.